Story 1. The Closet Door. Sarah's life was quiet. Too quiet, most people would say, but that was how she liked it. After a messy breakup and leaving her family's small town behind, she'd found a little one-bedroom apartment tucked into the corner of an aging building downtown. The kind of place where the hallways always smelled faintly of someone else's dinner and the walls echoed with muffled voices and footsteps. To Sarah, it felt safe, anonymous, a place to start over. Her job at the hospital kept her busy, often pulling long evening shifts that stretched well into the night. She didn't mind. She liked the calm that came with walking home under the amber glow of streetlights, when the world seemed to have exhaled and fallen asleep. Her neighbors, an older woman with too many cats, a couple who argued constantly, were predictable. Her building was ordinary, and that was exactly what Sarah wanted, ordinary. But ordinary has a way of breaking. The first night, it was late October when it happened. The weather was just starting to bite with the first chill of winter, and Sarah hurried up the steps to her apartment, hugging her coat tight. She slipped inside, flicked on the small lamp by the door, and exhaled. Another shift over. Her routine was simple. Kick off her shoes, grab a glass of water, and collapse into bed. She barely noticed the way the shadows seemed thicker that night, how the corners of her room swallowed light. Her closet door, she thought, was shut. She always shut it before bed. It was a quirk of hers, a small habit left over from childhood, because something about an open closet, with its dark slit of unknown space, unnerved her. Hours later, she woke. Not to an alarm, not to her phone buzzing, but to a sound. Her eyes fluttered open, adjusting to the dim glow of the streetlight filtering through the blinds. First, she thought it was part of a dream. But then it came again, the subtle groan of wood shifting. Her closet door. She blinked hard, willing herself to ignore it, to roll over and go back to sleep. But then she heard it breathing. Shallow, careful. Just beyond the crack of the closet door. Sarah froze. Her brain fired off explanations as fast as it could. Draft, pipes, her imagination. But the sound was too human, too close. Her chest tightened, and a cold wave of dread washed through her. She stared at the closet, willing it to stay still. But in the silence of her bedroom, she could hear it clearly. Someone was breathing inside. Her hand trembled as it slid across the nightstand. She found her phone, pulled it toward her without making a sound, and with the slowest, most deliberate movements of her life, she dialed 911. Her whisper cracked as she told the dispatcher what she thought. There was someone in her closet. Stay on the line, the dispatcher told her. Help is on the way. Don't confront them. Stay quiet. Sarah clutched the phone like a lifeline, her body rigid beneath the blanket, her eyes locked on the closet door. Every second stretched into eternity. And then another sound. The faint scrape of something metallic against wood. A knife. By the time the pounding came at her front door, Sarah was on the verge of passing out from holding her breath. Police! A voice shouted. In a rush of motion, she leapt from the bed and flung the door open. 2 officers swept past her, guns drawn, heading straight for the closet. The door was open wider now, a sliver of darkness spilling into the room. Come out! One officer barked. For a moment, silence. Then the closet door swung wider, and crouched inside was a man. He was thin, filthy, his eyes bloodshot, his hair a tangled mess. In his hand he clutched a knife, the blade catching the faint glow of the lamp. They wrestled him out, the struggle echoing through the small apartment. Sarah pressed herself against the wall, her legs barely holding her up as she watched them pin the man to the ground and cuff him. Her safe, ordinary apartment was no longer ordinary. When it was over, one of the officers stayed behind to take her statement while the other escorted the intruder out. Do you know him? The officer asked. Sarah shook her head, unable to find words. We think he's been targeting buildings in this area. Found another place just last week with signs of entry. Looks like he waits until tenants come home, then slips in before the door fully closes. Hides until night. The officer's words blurred. Sarah couldn't stop staring at the closet. At the empty space where, Just minutes ago, a stranger had crouched in the dark, listening to her breathe. Sleep didn't come easy after that. Even with the man arrested, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every creak of the building, every rustle of wind outside her window sent her pulse racing. She triple-checked the locks. She pushed a chair under the doorknob. She left the closet light on, the door open, because seeing the space was better than wondering what hid behind it. But sometimes, late at night, she swore she could still hear it. Breathing, shallow, careful, just beyond the closet door. Story 2. The sliding glass door. Michael had always liked houses with big windows. There was something comforting, he thought, about being able to see outside. The way the night pressed against the glass, the reflection of his own living room shimmering like a ghost over the dark backyard. When he and his girlfriend, Emily, moved into the small rental home on the edge of town, the selling point had been the massive sliding glass door that opened onto the backyard patio. During the day, sunlight poured through, warming the living room and flooding the space with golden light. But at night, the glass became something else entirely. A black mirror. A screen of darkness. You could see out, sort of, but mostly it felt like something on the other side could see in. Michael told himself it was just nerves. New house, quiet street, too much empty space behind them. But still, he noticed how Emily always shut the curtains before dusk. She never liked the glass when it was dark. The first night it happened, he was sitting on the couch, half asleep, the glow of the TV flickering against his face. Emily had gone to bed an hour earlier. The room was silent except for the hum of the television and the occasional tick of the clock. And then 3 taps. Soft, deliberate. Against the sliding glass door, Michael froze. The remote slipped from his hand onto the couch. Slowly, he turned his head toward the door. At first, there was nothing. Only the dark yard stretching out, the faint silhouette of the fence at the property line. His own reflection stared back at him from the glass. But then, movement. A shadow flickered at the edge of the door. Tall, human, standing still. Michael jolted upright, fumbling for the lamp. Light filled the room. He rushed to the curtain and yanked it shut, his heart hammering in his chest. Emily stirred when he climbed into bed minutes later, still shaking. "What's wrong?" she mumbled. "Nothing," he lied. "Just thought I saw something outside." She gave him a sleepy look, then rolled over. But Michael didn't sleep. Not well. Every creak of the house kept him awake. Every gust of wind against the siding made him flinch. The next morning, he went outside, scanning the backyard in daylight. Nothing. No footprints. No sign that anyone had been near the door. Maybe he'd imagined it. Maybe it was a tree limb shifting in the wind. He told himself that. But the image of that shadow stayed with him. 2 nights later, it happened again. Michael was alone, Emily was working late. The house felt emptier than usual, the silence too thick. He sat at the kitchen table scrolling through his phone, deliberately avoiding looking at the sliding door. And then tap, tap, tap. This time closer. Michael's head shot up, his stomach nodding. Slowly, he lifted his eyes toward the door. Someone was there. The shadow was pressed against the glass, tall, broad shoulders. No face he could make out. Just a black shape outlined against the faint porch light. Michael leapt to his feet. "Hey!" he shouted. "Who the hell is that?" The figure didn't move, didn't flinch. Just stood there, inches away, separated by nothing but glass. Michael's chest pounded. He grabbed his phone, fumbling to unlock it. When he looked back, the figure was gone. The yard was empty. He called Emily, his voice trembling. But when she came home, they searched the backyard together. Nothing. No footprints, no signs of anyone. "You're scaring me," Emily whispered. "I'm scaring myself," Michael muttered. The nights after that blurred together in a haze of dread. Michael tried to ignore it, to tell himself it was his imagination. But the tapping kept happening. Always at night, always against the glass. Sometimes it was 3 taps, sometimes 5. sometimes just one long, drawn-out drag of a hand across the surface. The worst part? The figure never moved when Michael looked. It never ran, never ducked away. It only stood there, watching. Emily grew more and more anxious. She refused to sit in the living room after dark. She kept the curtains closed at all times. Michael tried to act strong, but inside he was unraveling. One night, determined to prove it was real, he set up his phone on the coffee table, camera pointed at the sliding glass door. He left it recording while he pretended to watch TV. The tapping came right on cue. Michael didn't move. He sat frozen, heart slamming against his ribs, as the shadow appeared again. Closer than ever, its head tilted slightly, as though studying him. When it finally vanished, Michael stopped the recording, his hands shaking so badly he nearly dropped the phone. He pressed play. The video showed him, sitting on the couch, staring at the door, but there was nothing there. No shadow, no tapping. Just Michael, alone, looking terrified of empty glass. By the fourth week, Michael wasn't sleeping at all. He kept watch by the sliding glass door every night, his eyes burning, his nerves shredded. Emily begged him to go to the police, but what could he say? That a shadow kept tapping on his door? That his camera never picked it up? They started fighting. She wanted to move. He insisted they couldn't afford it. And still, the tapping came. Always at night. Always deliberate. One night, just after midnight, the sound was different. Not tapping. Sliding. Michael's eyes flew open where he dozed on the couch. He turned his head slowly toward the door. The lock was moving. The metal latch rattled. Shook, as though someone was trying to force it from the outside. Michael bolted upright, shouting, "Get away from there!" The rattling stopped. For a moment, silence. Then, something whispered against the glass. His name. Michael snapped. He stayed awake until dawn, pacing the living room, a kitchen knife clutched in his hand. Emily begged him to come to bed, but he refused. At 3 a.m., the tapping started again. Slow. Mocking. Michael yanked the curtains open. The shadow was there, pressed against the glass, its faceless head tilted. "Who are you?" Michael screamed. The shadow didn't move. Michael slid the door open in a sudden burst of rage, stepping out onto the patio. Cold night air rushed in. But the yard was empty. He spun in circles, scanning the fence line, the shadows. Nothing. When he turned back toward the house, his stomach dropped. The sliding door had closed, and Emily stood inside, only it wasn't Emily. Her face was pale, her eyes black as the glass, her smile too wide. She raised her hand slowly and tapped 3 times on the inside of the door. Tap, tap, tap. Michael staggered back, heart slamming against his ribs, and the shadow inside tilted its head. The next morning, neighbors reported hearing shouting in the night. Police found the sliding glass door wide open, the living room in disarray. But Michael and Emily were gone. The only thing left was the faint imprint of a hand pressed against the glass. Story 3. The bedroom window. Claire had never minded living alone. At 27, she relished the quiet. No roommates stealing food, no noisy neighbors pounding on the wall. Just her and her books, her plants, and the tiny one-story house she'd managed to rent on the edge of town. It was perfect in nearly every way except for the bedroom window. The house was old, the kind of place with drafty corners and creaky doors. But the bedroom window was the worst feature by far. It was tall, nearly floor to ceiling, and faced the street. No bars, no lock beyond a flimsy latch. When Claire lay in bed, she could see the dark outline of the window frame, the street lamp glowing faintly beyond, the occasional shadow of a car passing. Her friends teased her about it. "You'll wake up to someone watching you one night," they said. Claire always laughed, though uneasily. "That's why I keep the curtains closed." But curtains were thin things, and curtains couldn't stop what was about to happen. It started on a Tuesday. Claire was half asleep, drifting in and out of dreams, when she felt it, that eerie sense of being watched. She opened her eyes. The curtains swayed slightly, as if moved by a breeze. But the window was shut, and for just a split second, between the shifting folds of fabric, she thought she saw a face. Not clear, not detailed, just the pale impression of features pressed close to the glass. Her heart jolted. She shot upright, fumbling for the lamp. The room filled with light. The curtains hung still. The window was empty. Claire tried to shake it off. A dream. A trick of shadows. Still, she double-checked the lock before forcing herself back into bed. But sleep never came easy after that. 2 nights later, it happened again. Claire was scrolling on her phone when she caught the movement out of the corner of her eye. A faint ripple in the curtains. Slowly, she lowered her phone, listened, breathing. Her blood went cold. It was faint, but unmistakable. The slow, steady sound of breath, just on the other side of the glass. Summoning courage, she flung the curtain open. No one. The empty street stared back at her, bathed in the sickly yellow of the street lamp. Her reflection looked pale in the glass. But in that reflection, just over her shoulder, she swore she saw another figure. She spun around. Nothing. That night, she dragged a chair against the window and sat there until dawn, unable to close her eyes. The following week was torment. Every night, it escalated. Sometimes it was tapping, gentle, deliberate, as if someone were drumming their fingers on the glass. Sometimes it was the faint squeak of skin pressed against it, sliding slowly downward. Other times, she'd wake to find the curtains already open. She knew she'd shut them before bed. She always shut them. Desperate, Claire installed a cheap motion-detecting security camera on her nightstand, facing the window. She needed proof. She needed to know she wasn't losing her mind. That very night, at 3:12 a.m., the tapping came again. Claire lay frozen, pretending to sleep, as her camera's red recording light blinked steadily. In the morning, she grabbed her phone, hands trembling, and opened the footage. First, it was nothing, just her room, dark and still. Then, at 3:12, the curtains shifted, slowly, carefully, and a pale hand slipped between the fabric, fingers curling. Holding the curtain open, a face leaned in, pressed against the glass. Claire's stomach turned to ice. The face had no eyes, just empty hollows where they should have been. She dropped the phone, gagging, and when she dared to pick it back up, the video was gone. Deleted. Claire stopped inviting friends over. She stopped going out after dark. She told no one, afraid they'd think she was crazy. But the window consumed her. She nailed the curtains shut. She stacked furniture in front of the glass. She taped paper across the panes so she wouldn't see outside. None of it mattered, because one night, she woke to find all of it gone. The curtains lay folded neatly on the floor. The taped paper was shredded. The furniture pushed aside, as if carefully moved. And the window stood bare. Claire screamed and bolted from the room, sleeping the rest of the night on the couch with every light in the house on. The next morning, she swore she'd leave. But something kept her. A stubbornness. A need to know. And maybe, deep down, a curiosity. One night, she couldn't take it anymore. She sat on the bed with the lights off, staring straight at the window. "Show yourself," she whispered. For a long time, nothing happened. The street was quiet, the night still. Then, slowly, a shadow darkened the glass. A figure leaned close, its outline sharp, its head tilting as though it could see her perfectly. Claire's breath caught in her throat. The latch clicked. The window slid open an inch. Then another. The cold night air spilled in. Claire scrambled for the lamp, flicking it on in a blind panic. The light filled the room, and the window was shut. Curtains still drawn. Latch still locked. Her mind reeled. Had it happened at all? Then she heard it. From directly behind her. Breathing. That night, Claire made her choice. She packed a bag, determined to leave. But exhaustion hit her like a wave, and she lay down for just a moment, promising herself she'd go at first light. She never saw dawn. Neighbors later reported hearing screams. When police arrived, they found the house in disarray. Claire's belongings were scattered, her phone shattered on the floor. The bedroom window was wide open, and outside, pressed into the dirt below, were footprints. Bare, small, as if a child had been standing there for hours, waiting. Claire was never seen again. The landlord rented the house again within months. The new tenants mentioned nothing strange, at least not at first. But sometimes at night, neighbors swore they could see a pale face in the bedroom window. Watching, always watching.